Guys, this is Tina back in for another story. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all the new subscribers that I've gotten. I really do appreciate the support. I'm going to tell you a story today, and the story today is about domestic violence that ends in murder. It's very sad. So just please try to stay tuned. So the the man I'm going to talk about today is called his name is called John Battaglia. John Battaglia is of Italian descent but was born here in America on a military base in Alabama. So it is said that he may have been subjected to some type of abuse when he was young. So John Battaglia ended up marrying a woman. Her name was Michelle Getty. So Michelle Getty and John got married, and then they had a daughter. John was a very violent man. He has a violent way of towards or look view towards women that like they should be abused. I don't know. It's just weird. So anyway, they end up getting divorced, and John goes on to marry a woman called Mary Pearl. Mary Pearl was married to John, and then they had two daughters, Faith and Liberty, ages 6 and 9 when this happened. So John would constantly harass and also abuse Mary. So they had a blowout on Christmas in 1999. I believe that's when it happened. They had some type of blowout where he did some things to her, violent acts against her. And so she filed for divorce, and their divorce finalized in August of 2000. So she divorced him pretty quick. You can see she wanted to get the heck out of there. So anyway, John was seen as a doting father. He never showed any violence towards any of his children or his daughters, from what the reports say. He showed violence towards his wives, but never, not his daughters. He seemed to be a really doting father, so he seemed to like really love his children. So anyway, the there we had some type of order that because he had done the domestic violence, and he was on some type of probation and was not supposed to contact her, and was still contacting her and harassing her. So during this time, though, she had no problem, or did she feel any fear of him having his children, because he was always really good to the girls, so she didn't have too many worries. And also, the courts do allow for visitation. And this is kind of sad sometimes when there's an abuser and they're allowed. I mean, I feel like this one should have been supervised visits. So in any event, what ends happening is one night in 2001, he picks up the girls, and their intentions are to go to a dinner. That's what John planned, apparently. And what ended up happening, what he did, well, obviously, he must have had this in his mind. We don't really know what was in this man's mind, because he is, what was on death row. So he takes the girls back to his apartment, and then what he does, Mary didn't have any worries, his ex-wife, and so she was out doing something, and she got a phone call, and the phone call was one of her daughters, and one of her daughters was saying, "Why do you want to put Daddy in jail?" And obviously, this is John pushing the child to say that to his ex-wife Mary. So um, Mary tried to say for the girls to run, but it was already too late. So what ended up happening is John got his gun, and he shot and killed both of his daughters, Liberty and Faith, ages 6 and 9. One was shot 3 times, the other was shot 5 times. So anyway, John Battaglia ended up on death row for these crimes that he committed on his own children. What's interesting about this also is that right after he committed the murder, he was with some woman. I'm not sure who the woman was, and they went and got tattoos, and he got 2 tattoos and each is a rose. Okay, so I guess it was to signify each one of his daughters that he had just murdered, and then he was arrested. So there's a documentary about that he's in, and it's about people that have parents on death row. So there's an interviewer there where they talk to him and they ask him about his daughters. And when they ask him about his daughter's faith and liberty, he just gives them like a blank stare. He doesn't really acknowledge anything or say anything. He seems like a bit like on just kind of really arrogant side in these videos. And then also they had asked him about the two roses because they knew that those roses were there because of his daughters. And they had asked him directly, like, why did you choose two roses? And his answer was simply because I like roses. That's his answer. Not his answer's not that this represents my two baby girls that I, you know, murdered, or it was just so cold and callous. This man just seemed like he was just cold and callous. They had also asked him about his ex-wives, and he had said, I know that he had said about one of them, like, she deserved to be beaten. She didn't get the beating that she deserved. She deserved worse. So he was really violent towards the women that he was with. He just seemed to have like almost a disdain for women, or like maybe a lower on the hierarchy, like women need to be uh, beat. Back in the day, that's how things were, in the United States. Luckily, we have laws now that protect women. We also have shelters and things like that. I also have shared my story of domestic violence. I was in a relationship where there was domestic violence. Luckily, I was able to get out. It looks like Mary here obviously did get out, but she had children with this man and was stuck with visitations. And to be honest, from the reports I see, it doesn't show that Mary was concerned or worried because he had always been a doting father. So she didn't really, who I don't think anyone would have saw this coming. I mean, I think when I look at it, this is a violent man. You would think that the courts would appoint someone to monitor him while he's with his children, if he is able to still see his children. Violent people, obviously sometimes turn their violence to others, and domestic violence is no joke. So things do escalate. They never get better. My story was just I had to find a way out, and I got out, and I just started working and just taking care of myself, and just never look back at that type of situation, nor will I ever allow that to happen to me again. There are places to go. I will leave the links down below. I will leave the links down to the story about John Battaglia, also the link to for domestic violence for anyone that may need to seek help or get help about or get help or assistance with domestic violence, especially if there's children involved. The children, a lot of people stay together and think that they stay together because of the children, but what ends up happening, I know I grew up in a home where there was domestic violence, so it doesn't really do anyone any good to stay in that environment. Also, you could lose your life. Look what happened to these children, these poor little two little baby girls. They're so beautiful, and it's so sad. So I just also wanted to mention that John Battaglia was eventually put to death in 2018. His lawyer did try to fight the death penalty, but he was unable to escape it. The lawyer was trying to argue that he wasn't fit to stand trial, but he lost his appeals with all of his appeals, and the execution did go through in 2018. So I'm not going to say unfortunately. This man, uh, I've said before how I feel about capital punishment. I Again, I feel the same way. If you've watched any of my other videos, you will see that I have a certain, thought about that. If the punishment fits a crime, well, I mean, he murdered he's can you imagine how scary it was for those two little babies? Like, my gosh. I know that there's a daughter out there. She's a bit older, and that she wanted to believe that her father was innocent from doing these acts, and that she may or may not feel a certain way. I'm not sure. I don't want to sit here and try to speculate on how the the eldest daughter feels of any type of domestic situation you're in. If you are in one, there is a lot of help out there. So please, thank you very much again for if you spent any time of your day with me. Just give me a few minutes of your time. That really means a lot. And I hope that these stories, will continue. And I hope that you will take care of yourselves out there. And I will see you again soon in the next video. Okay, thank you.